What made you decide, I'm ready to try N-FINITY? Because you are basically the first grower in America to do it.
As you look at the input cost, over a third of our budget will be in nitrogen alone.
I don't think any farmer would disagree that they want something that's going to make their nitrogen use more efficient. And so if that can happen, it'd be a product to be very useful to most farmers.
You know, the key for us is the efficiency.
Whether it's through more yield or whether it's through less cost, the economic bottom line is what we're looking for.
But what we hope to see is very clearly one objective, and that's increase nitrogen use efficiency.
Say as an industry, what is our efficiency? At one point we were at 1.2, then we got to a 1, now we want to be at a 0.8. On average, what do we truly want to get to? You know, whether or not it's a wet acre and you want to guard against denitrification, or is it that dry acre and you want to have more N available? All of those things factor into that NUE. So now how do you get proactive and guard against that?
Doug and Aaron are real live, modern, intense management farmers. And we want to put our technology, N-FINITY, in positions with farmers that are employing the kind of practices that we believe will provide a higher likelihood of success.
You know, this piece of land means a lot. You know, my grandpa purchased these 2 fields in 1962. You know, I've always had the passion to work on the farm. And then come full circle, you know, 20 years later, being able to use this farm for research and working along with my dad and uncle has been a way to learn about how we continue to get better in agriculture and how I can serve others as an agronomist to get better as well.
My grandpa bought this about 1960. From about high school on, I kind of got the fever, and I've never been able to kick it since then. It's putting these little seeds in the ground and going about your day, and you turn around and it looks like this. And there's just nothing like it.
In 2024, 344 field trials were conducted to test a new offering from Loveland Products, N-FINITY, which is designed to improve nitrogen use efficiency by increasing the availability of biological sources of nitrogen. Aaron Galt, Doug Longfellow, and Kess Berg were among the first to use N-FINITY on their corn. What follows are the results of those trials.
I always talk about we are environment first. So much of our work here is simulating what you're going to see out in the field. We have 48 individual sub-irrigation plots. And so each one of those plots, we can control water balance, we can pass nutrient through that sub-irrigation. And with that, we can understand what's going on out in the field and then get to management techniques that mitigate that.
This is what we call the nitrogen loss potential map. So again, you can see that we've got some loss potential here right off the edge of the plot, but as you get into these red areas, after a big rainfall event, I know that those areas are going to stay saturated over an extended period of time. By this trial structure, we're able to introduce variability and really understand product performance over a wide scope of environments in one field. So we've got multiple outcomes in just this one trial versus just seeing yield in a small replicated trial. What we've found over the last 10 years is we've really brought up that lower tail of yield. Not that we haven't increased the top end of those good acres, but it's really been that stability that we see that has increased the overall farm yield.
Our yield goals would be 215 to 240, and so that's why we've increased our nitrogen over the last few years to try to reach those goals.
Here we're in 20-inch rows, so we put a lot of nitrogen, so we'll be probably in that 230 pounds of N with a yield goal to surpass that 260, 265 in this field that we're in today. Control treatment, just regular 1034-0, and here we have the N-FINITY product with 1034-0 right side by side. And what we can tell early on is we've got bigger stalk diameter, bigger overall above ground mass versus the control.
N-FINITY is the setup. First milestone is stand establishment. The next milestone is canopy. If N-FINITY can get me to canopy in a faster manner, that's a great thing.
We believe it's a three-pronged approach in terms of what our technology will deliver. It helps to fix atmospheric nitrogen. The second component, which again, in some geographies is very significant, is the ability to liberate organic nitrogen pools that exist in the soil profile. Convert those organic nitrogen pools to a plant-available form. And third, there is N-fixing bacteria in the soil profile. And by enhancing the activity and recruitment of those N-fixing microbes, the plant takes in more nitrogen. It's those three legs to the stool that are going to deliver a more consistent result across a wide range of zip codes, crops, growing conditions that will ultimately will result in consistency.
What is the probability that I'm going to get X yield? And with each stage, setting up that plant, making sure you become less and less and less dependent on the weather. And I think today we're seeing that bigger plant as compared to the control.
This year's been pretty interesting. You know, we started off with a great growing season. Crop went in a little late, the 20th of May. Started off, had really good growth. Was very optimistic that it could be, a record crop. In the last 6 weeks, we've been really dry. Haven't been able to extend the grain fill like we typically do. We've taken some top end off of our potential, especially, with this later planted corn.
We were able to plant early towards the end of April, and we had pretty good growing conditions to get started. We had a good even stand, good populations. We had pretty decent rain through June and July, and then of course here in the last month and a half, we've really shut off with rain. It's been over 30 some days without any rain.
I went into the field, into the replicated trials, and I pulled out, a couple examples. The plant on the left here is the control. The plant on the right is the treatment with N-FINITY. Yeah, I'd say probably a 15% larger root mass. And then as you focus in on this internode 6, you can tell that our overall storage tank is wider, so we've got a bigger stalk, but I can see that we've got some cavitation. Our fuel tank is, fairly empty in internode 6 here, where we have a lot of sucrose, which should lead to allowing us to have bigger kernels as we finish the last couple weeks of grain fill.
So just coming in here again, that randomness of plant. My guess is the kernel count isn't that much different between these two. You can see these are smaller, these are bigger. But we can see there's more mass here than mass here. Look at the amount of kernel abortion here. That plant was sensing, I don't have enough energy if things go really bad to finish off those particular kernels, so I'm going to start to reduce my load. Pretty easily to see there is going to be a yield difference. As long as you are in an environment that supports that microbial activity, has moisture, has the organic matter there, we're seeing a response. At Advanced Agrilytics, we saw a 12 bushel increase versus the control. That's huge. That's a big deal. Our NUE was right at 0.95.
In my field, it was upwards of 5 bushel, and for it to have stability in that environment in a year where, yeah, I had rain in the first 30 days, but we really didn't have a lot of saturation, and that's where the impact was really pulled away from N-FINITY. Looking at the nitrogen use efficiency gleaned from N-FINITY, I went from a 0.89 to a 0.866, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you look at the expense of nitrogen and look at stability by environment, that's not nothing to write home about.
I think our total average is about 224 bushel. I think so a good bit higher than what our 10-year average. The weather that we received, well, I don't think we had any big problems with nitrogen loss.
There are simply environments where nitrogen is not the limiting factor, and I think that was the case in Doug's farm.
It was, easy to add it into our solution. It didn't take any time, really, so I like that part of it. We're willing to try it multiple years and not just go off of 1 year's data.
N-FINITY performed very consistently. 344 yield trials across 12 states and 3 crops. with an 82% win rate and 7.9 bushel yield response on average. Those are very positive economics for the farmer and a high level of consistency that we had hoped to see.
It's a metabolite. That's what you're putting in the ground. I think that's a huge difference.
That simply translates to it's more durable, it's more hardy, it can sustain itself in a wide range of weather conditions, in a wide range of application timings or tank mix partners with commercial fertilizers.
The process of using the metabolites really brings the shelf life, the stability of N-FINITY, so that you know what you're putting in the planter is what you bought. It hasn't been degraded, and when N-FINITY goes into the soil, it still has its 100% effectiveness. We had a good crop, but what I'm more excited about is years like 2019 where we caught rain every week. We had nitrogen loss even before the tassels came out. It will be interesting to see how well N-FINITY works in that scenario.
As we go forward, we have confidence in the performance of N-FINITY across a range of growing environments, whether it's at a full applied nitrogen rate or a 10 or 20% reduction. And we have confidence that it'll provide the kind of return on investment and increased nitrogen efficiency that farmers are after.